So let's get into some Raptors things, and I want to fix the NBA Cup. Is there any question now people are purely watching for the ethical tank? Because I feel like you guys have to cover this from the, like, and by you guys, I mean the actual, like, Raptors coverage team. You guys have to do, and I'm going to do one little thing because I actually am still interested in the basketball. But at this point, I actually think that it is one of the more enjoyable Toronto sports things right now because you have a clear, defined goal in mind. I always say you want to race to either the very top or the very bottom, and especially in this year where there's Cooper Flagg, and he's actually doing things at college where you say, oh, maybe this isn't all just internet hype to what I was kind of speaking on earlier, that this is genuinely like a real prize. And the Raptors have not just found ways to lose. It's not been depressing where you watch all these games and go, oh my God, this is an unwatchable product. I was genuinely excited to turn on the Celtics game and catch overtime live after the Leafs finished on Saturday, and I finished my show because I wanted to see if they would choke away the game in a tight contest. And they did. Jason Tatum hits the shot, and I find myself rooting for two things simultaneously, which is the fun, enjoyable play of certain players on the team, and then a collapse late, and they've just delivered it. It is the ethical tank. It is one of the more enjoyable things that I've had in my life in sports in the last recent couple of years. I'm dead serious.
Yeah, and Jason Tatum shuffled his feet more on that shot than Mike Tyson managed to over 8 rounds. You know, it was I'm with you, and we do have to like analyze this stuff on the show still. But everyone's been very honest. Like from the start of media day, everything has been, well, we're rebuilding. The one thing that there are two things that I kind of have kicking around in my head as these games are going on. And one is that, like, last place doesn't guarantee you Cooper Flagg. Like, if you finish dead last, there's a 50% chance you end up picking 5th. Yeah. And a 50% chance you end up picking in the top 4, 52-48. So, like, it's not a lot. Now, this is a good draft outside of Cooper Flagg as well. There are a couple other guys you'd be very, very excited to add. So that's one thing. The other is you're not going to go 2-80. And I know that Scotty and
But wouldn't it be great if they did?
It would be really funny.
It would be great. No, they won't do that, and that wouldn't be good.
It would kill, like, so remember last year when the Pistons were chasing the all-time losing streak record? It would kill it. There would never again, like in the history of the NBA forever, there would be no team who ever was at risk.
You don't want to be the greatest loser in NBA history. No. But that's part of the fun of this, is that there's like fine lines to walk.
Yeah, and look, developmentally, it's really, really good that they're playing teams like Denver and like Boston really, really close, and you can hang in those games. And in a lot of those games, they've gotten down double digits and fought back. And, you know, there's probably an element of, oh, Boston didn't take them all that seriously. Denver didn't take them all that seriously. You know, the Lakers game was a good example where they didn't take them seriously at all. And then at one point, LeBron was like, all right, enough of this. Let's end this thing. But this is it's a rebuilding team. Even if you had all your guys, you'd be happy with hanging with the defending champs on the second night of a back-to-back. You're doing this without 5 or 6 players, including, you know, your unquestioned best player and one of your top 4 players in Quickly. You're doing it without basically what was supposed to be your entire second unit. So there are wins in that. There are obviously wins in the player development. You know, Grady Dick, the fact that Boston engineered their entire defense on Saturday on stopping Grady Dick. Grady Dick got the Derek White treatment, and Jakob Poeltl goes off because Boston's like, we're sending 2 to Grady Dick every time. We are steering Grady Dick off the 3-point line and out of his mid-range, and if that means someone feasts inside, we'll take it. Like, that's a win developmentally. It's great for Grady long-term to see that. It says a lot about where he is. Ochai going from, I don't know if he's ever going to be a rotation guy to, he's definitely at worst a good bench piece moving forward. All those things are positive, and then you lose the games, which is good for the long term. I do want, like, in the moment, I want the win. I can't bring myself to be like, oh, I hope Jason Tatum hits this shot.
Can I tell you something?
You do?
No, I think you're a liar. In that, I do not think that you want them to win, because here's the thing.
I don't want them to win every game.
No, but Cooper Flagg coming here would actually dramatically change the level of interest in this team.
Right,
it would do so much for just.
But my point about they're not going to go 2-80 is that you're going to win 12 or 15 games at minimum over the course of the year. They are 1-7 in these close games now. And again, I get it. Scotty played in one of them. Quickly's played in none of them. You'd rather save the wins for when Scotty and Quickly are back and you're likelier to win some.
That's it.
I would like for these guys who have gone through this 7-8 times in the last 2 weeks to get one once in a while. Like, I actually do think there's a human element of, like
care.
keeping these guys holding the rope, keeping these guys believing in the process and stuff like that. It would be, even something like Grady Dick misses a couple clutch ones on Friday in big spots. I think that's big for him if he hits one of those. If he hits a big game winner like that, it doesn't have to be. I don't want them to be 4-4 in those close games, but in the moment when they've lost 6 of them in a row or whatever. Yeah, I kind of hope they pull him out here and there.
I think that there is a staleness to the Raptors team that is undeniable, and that Scotty Barnes is going to come back and make this team better, and it's part of the reason why I'm good with the banking of wins. But there is 0% part of me that ever believes that he will be the best player on a championship-winning team, and I actually don't think that it's even going to be a debate. Like, it's just not going to be. Cooper Flagg might be that. And even in terms of, I like it when we have genuine interest in sports and everybody cares about it. And if you get Cooper Flagg, you get the number 1 pick and he's from Duke, people are going to go, sorry, what's this all about? And it's going to be very different. I know there's the 2 guys from Rutgers, but I just Googled a quick search. Igor Demon, I don't know yet. I'm not into college basketball yet, so forgive me, Hardos. Forgive me, the Danielles of the world. You get that guy from BYU, and it's not going to be the same, even if he turns out to eventually be the best player in the draft. So, they need Cooper Flagg. They need to have those lottery balls, and the more they do this, the more people are going to be invested in it. Now, granted, there are some developmental things that do matter.
And sorry, I just want to say one thing. I'm absolutely like the push for Cooper Flagg is real and should be. Yeah,
I think people are going to resent Scotty Barnes when he comes back and they're better and they win some games. There's going to be a large portion of people that are like, you're ruining the tank.
Banking the losses is the right way to say it, right? Is like
that's what I tweeted right away. As soon as the game was over, I was like, what a clutch loss. They need to bank these losses. It's incredibly important right now.
And again, I cannot be more clear. My point is not that they should win all of these games. It's just in the moment when they've lost a bunch in a row, I'm like, they're going to win 15 games this year. This could be one of them. But yes, Cooper Flagg is and again, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, these are all really nice players, but Cooper Flagg's the prize. And
that's it. The nice players are nice.
Yes.
The potentially great players are great.
But there's only one of them, and you only have like a 25% chance of him if you finish that.
I'd rather have 25% than 24%.
Absolutely. That's not how the lottery works, but yes.
No, I get it, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes. I just need to remind people of that sometimes, because it does seem
I think people know that this isn't you get to the bottom and you get the guaranteed pick. But to me, this is just the same logic that was applying why I was so upset about the year they traded for Pirtle in the Wembanyama draft, where you go, I don't care that it's a 2% shot at Victor Wembanyama. If you can increase that to 4%, you want to have that happen to be able to get a generational talent. Although my preseason Wembanyama takes were bang on, just so everybody's reminded by it. I was wrong about the Timberwolves. I was dead wrong about the Timberwolves, but I was bang on about.
Also, I just need to. It's 14%, not 25%. I was exaggerating, but it's
that's for number 1.
Yeah,
14.
If you finish dead last,
that's
a 1 in 7 chance.
Yeah, I don't care. I want it,
and it's 14 for 1, 2, and 3. All have the same odds.
Yeah, but that's why it's actually even more critical, is because you're not bothering trying to be the very last.
Well, you are because then you can't fall the 7th or
exactly.
Whatever.
So
there's still very much value in
that's
this.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
You gotta.
I know
be
how tanking
3.
works.
Yeah,
I read the process.
You gotta be bottom 3.
I was on that Score news desk as Sam Hinkie was doing the most egregious things imaginable to make sure they lost enough games.
Again, this doesn't always work because it hasn't worked for the Sixers. There's a long list of teams. People go, oh, well, what about this? I'm not hoping that the Raptors keep losing forever and ever and then continue to employ this strategy. But to me, they are very much in a season where all of the elements have come together. They've been very mediocre. They came off of a bunch of misses with their organization, whether it was not selling players at the right time, not pivoting to what they really needed to be, which was a rebuilding team probably 2 years ago. Instead, they were clinging on to the vestiges of the past. It resulted in losses in play-in games to DeMar DeRozan, right? Like, what has been fun about the Raptors the last couple of years?
You blamed on his daughter.
That's it. And the last month of Raptors games have been fun. They've been genuinely beyond watchable. They've been enjoyable. I've loved it. I want to tune in every single time, and I want to see them lose. I just don't want to see them burn. I don't want to have it be like, oh, well, there's nothing going on here.
And look, they're going to be very conscious of this. Even if they win a couple games here and there, they're going to be very conscious of this.
That's my next question.
None of the injured guys even have an injury timeline. Like, I'm not saying they're doing anything funky there. It's just like there is not an urgency there is a lighter urgency that you would like for Scotty and Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett and Grady Dick to play together at some point. Those guys have played together 16 minutes over 65 games.
So
that they've been on the same roster. It's like you would like that element of it, but they're going to slow play every injury. If you have a sore foot, jammed finger, whatever, you're going to sit out. And then we saw what it looks like down the stretch last year, and some of that was beyond their control. Like we watched Scotty and Jakob get hurt, and then RJ and quickly had the family tragedies. But like, they pulled Malik Williams out of the G League and started him and played him 31 minutes. Like we know that they will lean in to that over the final 15, 20 games of the season as necessary.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up just because this has been one of the questions for me that is looming over top of things, which is so much of the season. And I said it when I did the preview with you, that the season is about finding out what they have between Quickly and Barnes. And now I think that's changed a little bit with what Grady Dick has shown because he looks like a genuine, it's really hard to deny this as, oh, well, this is just a guy getting empty calorie stats on a bad team. That's not what it is.
His diet of shots is so difficult.
That's what I mean. So normally I would look at numbers for a guy on a bad team and say, well, someone's got to get him.
Yeah.
But that has not been the Grady Dick experience whatsoever. So now it feels more like those three guys plus how it works with RJ Barrett, where he has this much control over the offense. And
the offense has looked a little smooth, like not as good maybe, but smoother than when IQ runs it because RJ's just a little quicker and snappier with the decisions. And I
think the offense has moved smoother than when Quickly's had it and also when Barnes has been out there, which I think is pretty interesting, given especially that, to me, Barrett is kind of like the head of the snake when it comes to why this has been so watchable, and also they lose at the end of games. Like, he's the perfect guy to have where you go, he'll go out there and he can get you 26-8 and he'll play hard, right? The other guys will follow him because he's trying out there. He'll keep going to the basket. He's playing this awesome two-man game with Jakob Poeltl, but when it's crunch time and it's Jason Tatum that you're against, Jason Tatum is more likely to hit that buzzer beater shot than RJ Barrett is, who rims out against the Denver Nuggets. So this is actually where I was going with the two basketball pieces of this for the Raptors. One is the level of, I don't want to say concern because that's not right, but the feeling of how this is going to fit together doesn't. I don't know how it does. When I watch these games, there's no part of me that goes, oh, and then they bring Barnes back and he's like purely additive, or they bring Quickly back and he's purely additive. To me, there is going to be some real figuring out to do for Darko in terms of how to make these guys all work well together. But the second piece is, what is your actual thought on what RJ's doing? Because I have nights where I watch it and go, oh, okay, yeah, no, he's still RJ Barrett, right? Like the ceiling is clear. But then I watch him versus Boston, and the way that he's playing with Jakob Poeltl, where it's just this mature two-man game between these two vets, and they're dominating for large stretches of the game. And I go, yeah, maybe, like, what, is he just like the best potential six man in the NBA? Is he going to be a starter that's additive? Does having someone like him actually allow for others to just be awesome around him? Like, do you go more shooters? I don't know what you do with the RJ thing. He's got me kind of confused.
Yeah, I think, look, overall, it is a huge positive. He's taken a big step.
Yeah.
I think you look at some of the efficiency numbers, and he's had a tough go as the number one scorer.
Yes.
Like, he's shooting 40% from the floor, and like his true shooting's under 50%.
What I'm saying about
turnovers
the
are pretty
awesome
high
stuff with the tank.
Yeah, so. But I think if you're projecting what RJ looks like when Scotty's back, when IQ's back, what your rotations look like when RJ was with the Knicks, he was always the first sub off and would come back in to run the bench unit with Quickly. And a scenario where RJ has taken such strides as a playmaker, where like your backup point guards when Quickly's back are Davion Mitchell and Jamal Shed. Both those guys are nice and like really good defensively, but you would rather have RJ Barrett running the offense in the second unit than those two guys right now. So maybe that's something you can tweak, whereas prior to the injuries, that was Scotty's role, right? Like Scotty comes out, Scotty runs the bench unit, but there's no spacing around him. Maybe that's RJ's role instead. But I think just big picture, the fact that it's his playmaking and his ability to pass this is the skill that has taken the biggest jump. That's the most important for me with how the Raptors want to play. Like you said, dropping Barnes and Quickly back in there, those are the two guys that command the largest share of how your offense operates. So who knows how all this looks like. But when they were all healthy, and this is mostly last year because they haven't played together this year, RJ was a lot of, hey, you're on the second side of the floor, we're going to run something over here, swing it to you, you attack a broken down defense, and it's going to be easier for you to get your buckets. And that is something that's still there. But now his ability to make that next pass off of it or go into a second side pick and roll and find, whether it's Jakob or Scotty or whoever, that's improved dramatically. You also have the option then, if you line up like that and you're like, the spacing's not that good, even though Grady's here, Quickly's, got the ball in his hands and doesn't want to pull the trigger that much. Well, maybe Quickly becomes your second side guy more. You start running RJ more with Scotty in those two-man actions, and suddenly you've got Quickly and Dick as your spacers and your guys moving off the ball. So I think the way RJ's improved as a passer opens up options for how you're going to orient that starting five in terms of who is where and who's doing what role in a way that just gives them some flexibility if that Quickly Barnes duo doesn't snap together, if they ever even get to play together. Mm-hmm. So I think all that is helpful rotation wise, how he fits there wise. I don't think I don't think it's been enough as a scorer, even though he's putting up 22 a game. Like he's shooting 40% and 31% on threes, and he hasn't hit his free throws down the stretch and stuff like that. I don't think it's enough that you're like, oh, RJ's the number 2 now. No. But I think the way he fits around all those guys is just, he's proven himself to be a more versatile player and better he's improved more in the secondary skills that really make him, a flexible piece offensively.
So this is going to sound dumb for a guy that was at Duke and averaged more points per game than Zion while he was there. I don't like RJ all that much as a scorer. I've done this a couple of times on the show this season already. When he is a playmaker before he is a scorer, that's when I like RJ Barrett. When the scoring is the secondary skill that you outlined. And part of the problem for me, when he's the stand in the corner, don't worry, we'll come run stuff. When he gets the ball and there's not enough of it, I think that's when he starts to revert to, well, now I got to score. Now I got to kind of get mine. And that's sort of my concern when these other guys come back, is that you're going to actually see I'm not doing enough RJ Barrett setting up for the other two guys that I want to see more of. I'll
worry about it when we see it.
I guess I want it. That's a really fair point. I hope that one of the takeaways from this is that he actually does run the offense more with Barnes and Quickly.
Yeah, and you hope he realizes it too, right? Like every guy in the league wants to put up 30. Like he got up 27 shots against the Celtics.
I know. I wonder what his brain is like though, because he's a high basketball IQ guy. But he's always been a volume shooter and a volume scorer. And when he gets the opportunities, he's always like, I want to put it up. Yeah. And you go, it's not really what you're.
I'd imagine this is where coaching comes in, right? And coaching, Darko hasn't maybe had the best season in terms of end of game stuff, which to your point is not the worst. It's not the worst season to have a coach who's developing as well.
I think he's been hit a little too hard for some of them, but yeah.
Yeah. Stuff happens.
Yeah.
You don't have Jason Tatum on your team. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, where the coaching comes in is being able to sit down with RJ and being like, look, we know you can get 20 whenever. You've done it for 6 years in the NBA now, but you see this assist number that's doubled over your previous career high. Mm-hmm. That's how we have a league average offense with no real offensive, well, not no offensive talent, but Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickly missing basically the whole season and Grady Dick being the only other real scoring threat. This is how we have a close to league average offense, is you taking that leap as a playmaker. That's where coaching comes in. It's you communicate that and you make that a part of, his identity, that hey, this is who we need you to be, we don't need you to get 25 empty calorie points a game. We need you to get 5-6 assists.
Yeah, I just think in his brain, he's probably not thinking that they're empty
calorie. I don't know him well enough to know where. I think if you to use your truth serum gimmick, if you gave it to every player in the NBA, every single player would be like, I can get 30 every night.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I don't know. It actually reminds me a lot of when Canada played the United States in the pre-tournament game, and they were running a lot for RJ, right? They were like, RJ, you got to score against Team USA. And again, that is a team full of superstars, but it was just so clear that it's like the Curb episode, icon, no con. That's how it felt watching him out there with those guys going, hey, I think you think those are your peers. They're not. Those guys are way better than you. And watching you go up against them, had some tough moments. Anyways, let's take a quick break because I want to talk about fixing the NBA Cup, the Emirates Cup.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfect. Just ask the NBA.
Yeah, I think we're over the courts. Do you still get excited that actually you did a tweet? You were like, courts. I was like, yeah, who cares?
I just posted a picture of the new court.
It's your job.
Guess what? There's another one on Thursday. Lock in.
I just cannot imagine at this point. I'm just saying, at first, seeing the courts, I was like, oh, that's cool. It's different, right? And we had our little debates about, hey, is a blue court weird? And is it? I just cannot imagine year two people being like, Look at the courts. That's why we're here. That's why we paid money to come see this game. So quick break. I got some thoughts on Fix It. And then, of course, stats you should know. Okay, two stats you should know today. Number one, the Jets' winning percentage as starting quarterback. Did the guys from the show see this stat from the weekend? No? Yeah, Armin saw it? Okay. Zach Wilson, 36% of his games as a starter with the Jets, he won. Sam Darnold, 34% of the games that he started for the Jets, he won. Aaron Rodgers is now at 27%. He's the worst of the three. It's glorious. This has gone even. Again, I don't really like kicking the downtrodden teams when they're down because I just feel for their fans and it doesn't become fun anymore. The only reason this is so fun is because Aaron Rodgers is involved. And he came into that team with the I'm better than all of this culture and I know more than you and how dare anybody think otherwise from Aaron Rodgers, the spectacular genius, and they suck and they keep getting worse. And to me, he is proof of concept where your leadership matters and it rubs off on other people because Sauce Gardner has all of a sudden become like the worst tackling defensive back in all of football. They've lost all of their swagger on defense. They're a team that quits and they're a team that has that attitude where it's like, oh no, we'll just show up and we'll be better than the Colts. It's like, no, you're not. Sorry, Jets.
For context, Trevor Lawrence, 37% winning percentage in his career.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers, step up to Trevor Lawrence's level.
Yeah, Jaguars looking good this week. You almost won. It was only 40 points.
Mac Jones is real bad.
Yeah. Okay, here's the best stat of the weekend, though. Shaquille O'Neal's career high in points per game, 29.6. Tim Duncan's career high in rebounds, 13. Chris Paul, career high in assists, 11.5 assists per game. What do all those three things have in common? I don't want people Armin, you know, right?
Yeah, I've got it once you said them.
Yeah.
Is that what Jokic is averaging right now?
If he was to average those numbers, all of his numbers would be down.
Wow.
Yeah. All of his numbers would be down. He is putting together, even by his standards, an all-time season. This guy is outrageously good. If you go look at the percentiles, we've never had a guy who leads the league in assists and rebounds. Like that's
There's no
pretty
such
obvious.
thing as a basketball triple crown.
Yeah. Like this is genuinely like all of this stuff. It's so funny because again, this goes to how we have other obsessions in sports as fans, right? We're always obsessed with who's the next one, and we're like, oh, what can Wemby be? What can Wemby be? What can Wemby be? Wemby is not even going to be Jokic, okay? And we have Jokic at home. Jokic is at home. He's right here. Just go watch Jokic. Don't worry about what Wemby's going to be in 5 years. Again, the other day, McKee asked me to go. He's like, when Wemby's in town, you want to go again? And I was like, yeah, for sure. But why didn't you ask me this for when, like, Jokic? Like, I don't understand. I get that he doesn't want to be in front of cameras. Is this all it is? Like, I don't get it. Is it because the rest of the Denver team is so bad? I don't understand. This is
the Denver context, them being a worse version year over year, and Jokic just being like, fine, I'll score 30 a game. It's like, this is a feature, not a bug with the Nuggets viewing experience.
If you pull up what he's in terms of the percentiles in the NBA, where it's like, again, he's leading the league in rebounds and assists. So it's like,
and he's
in the
third
100th
in points per game.
That's what I mean. He's the 100th percentile. It's like 99. You go across the board and all the percentiles, and Jokic just sits in all of them. It's a fast. You can just sit there and look at Jokic stats all game long. And then the thing is, though, he is the ultimate. The thing I love the most about him, he's compiling these statistics, but he is the antithesis to what his teammate, Russell Westbrook, used to be, which is a stat chaser. This guy's almost doing this reluctantly. He's forced into these positions to help his team win. All of these are winning stats. This isn't my take. This is, I think, Justin Termini's, but he once said the gap between LeBron and the next best player in the NBA when he was with the Miami Heat is not as great as the gap right now between Jokic and the next best player in the NBA. And I actually subscribe to that. I think that if you tried to replace Jokic with any other player, that Denver team is not making the playoffs.
I mean, look at the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
They probably have. I think you would say Giannis right now is playing like the second best player in the NBA.
I was going to say
him
that.
Or AD.
I was going to say that if you were asking me who the second best player is, that it's a debate, right? You can go through it and go, well, it might be Doncic. It might be, you can go make a pick for a few different guys, but it's like, no, the best player in the NBA is Nikola Jokic, and he genuinely might go down as one of the. You look at the center Mount Rushmore, and it's one of those things where you go, oh, you can't move any of these guys off of the list, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you put up a fourth MVP in 5 years and you have a championship in there,
he's going to walk to that MVP if he continues this.
Yeah, like he got the what's the like when teams get out of the tax so they're not repeater penalties. Yeah. He missed the one MVP year, so now he doesn't get the voter fatigue penalty.
I hope not. Okay. Fixing the Emirates Cup.
Oh, yeah.
I have a few things on this. So obviously it sucks and nobody cares, right? Like it's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't care if
the players and coaches can try to say that they care.
No,
like,
they don't.
Grady Dick has had an awesome season, and him trying to be like in the first cup game, like, well, it's a cup game, so we had to really lock in. Nah, man.
Okay, so here's how I know it sucks conclusively, is that the Raptors are the exact kind of team that's supposed to be really caring about this, and they obviously don't, and their fans don't. So what does that tell you? It's not great. The first NBA Cup, they really tried to sell us on it being interesting because of the Indiana Pacers, who did care, and their crowd was really into it, right? That was working. And then the other story was that their bench guys were going to get paid, and that teams were doing this for their bench guys because they were going to get a bonus. Here's what I actually don't care about. How much extra money professional athletes get. I'm sorry. I don't care.
You don't. That is the key to them caring.
Hey, guess what? They don't. Yeah. They cared for a little bit, but here's what the thing is. They also don't really care. You know what the NBA players are thinking mostly with the bench guys? Hey, man, if you wanted more bread, you would have been better at this game, and you wouldn't be the last guy showing up to practice.
The guys who care the most about the money aren't the guys who have the biggest influence on the game.
You have to have incredible team chemistry and culture throughout the entirety of it for guys to stay locked in, because the primary reason is, hey, the 15th guy in the team is going to get a bonus. So I have a couple of things for this that work, and you tell me whether or not you think that they're any somewhat feasible, and then you tell me if you have any to. Number one, automatic playoff berth.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it. I think the main...
you maintain your lottery odds, you maintain who you are.
That's the big thing. Is if you could be a bad team that gets their playoff spot no matter what, and still get the double dip,
that's what I'm saying.
That would be huge.
You get an automatic playoff berth.
Playoff or play in?
Well, that's what you would probably have to just you'd probably get a play in berth.
Yeah.
You'd have to be one of the seeds. But if you're doing play in though, then I would say you get an automatic home play in game.
Okay. I would be down for that. It really only motivates, obviously, the bottom half in each conference. But actually, that'd be pretty valuable in the West this year, right? Where 10 teams are 500 right now.
That's it. In the league of parity, where you have
the
so
East,
many
who
teams.
cares because whatever. But in the West, I think that would be a good motivating factor in the West right now.
But in general, the NBA is going towards more parity. This salary cap, here's how a dumb idiot like me can understand it, is more punitive than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. It is essentially a hard cap.
Yeah.
Okay? So if the Warriors are moving off of Klay Thompson and replacing him with Buddy Hield, and it worked, by the way, but if we're just doing that from a financial situation, it's the Warriors, the team that was willing to spend more money than God, it tells you of just how devastating these repeater taxes are and how much teams are going to try and move off of them. Anyway, so automatic playoff berth is my actual most realistic idea, because I think that there's a strong case to be made for it, and giving that team a home playoff game, especially given that a lot of this is about the regular season making it more interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, what makes it more interesting than even changing the dynamics of the playoff picture and going, oh, you guys aren't even fighting for this anymore. There's one less playoff spot for you to go for at the end of the season. Yeah. I think there's something to it.
Yeah, I would go, you lock in at worst ninth, so you get the one home playing game. I wouldn't go higher than that, I don't think, but ninth. You get the 9 seed at worst.
So basically the premise of this is that you can't make it about the players anymore, okay? We've tried making it interesting for the players with money. We've gone, hey, try in the All-Star game, we'll give you more money. And they're like, no. Hey, try in the playing game, we'll give you more money. It doesn't resonate with fans, and it doesn't even resonate with these players who are making so much money now that there's nothing that is compelling to these players. It's just not. There's always going to be the odd guy who goes, I really care about having that extra money. That means something to me. But for the most part, again, these are guys that spend a lot. And
the perfect storm comes along, and I'm sure it meant a lot to Tyrese Halliburton last year. You're a breakeout star. The timing's right. Yeah. Your team's probably not going to. Well, it turns out they could have done more in the playoffs
because we overrated him so bad from that tournament. So it did work for him.
Hamstring stuff lingering. It's not great.
I think he's just he's fine.
He's doing too much WWE appearances.
I think he's fine. I've always been on Tyrese Halliburton as Fine Island. I think that he's better. He's a much better version of Trae Young, but that there's a lot of similarities there with terms of.
We'll get a look tonight.
Yeah. Okay. So incentivize the fans. How do you do that? One, give an extra pick. Instead of the 32nd, the first pick of the second round, that becomes the winning team of the Emirates Cup. What's to stop them from doing that?
Okay, so I'm glad you framed it as it's for the fans, to get the fans to care, because that I agree with. The players would not care. The player, that might actually be like an anti-incentive to the players.
Care,
yes, the atmosphere is better.
Will care.
Yes.
If the fans are chanting for you and going nuts.
When this originally rolled out, people kicked around the idea of like, oh, give the team an extra first. It was like, hey, but that's not going to motivate the players because that's just an extra pick that someone could take their job.
I guess. I would just think that the fans caring that much. I actually don't even think it should be that. I think it should be higher. I think it should be the first pick outside the lottery is the team that won, like the 15th pick of the draft. It's just a little middle thing. And you go, 15th pick of the draft belongs to whoever won the NBA Cup. Again, I don't want that necessarily for the NBA. I'm just saying that if this thing's going to work, you have to have fan buy-in. And that is one of the ways to do it. The other idea I have with that, to kind of pair it together, is extra cap space. How are the players not incentivized by that?
An extra incentive, or exception.
Like, you don't get hit with the luxury tax the same way. The only argument that I have against that one, I'm arguing against myself, is that if I was the NBA champion, I would go, wait, so it's going to be harder for me to win my back-to-back championship because we won?
Also, the luxury tax is just money shifting around from owner to owner. I don't care that much. Like, I don't really care that the Celtics have a big luxury tax bill. Yeah. It's just like, oh, it's a bigger payout to the non-tax teams.
Yeah.
But it's not. It doesn't feed back into the salary cap. It's just cash.
Well, and here's the other part of it, too, why this doesn't work. How many owners would get that extra cap space and then not use it?
So here, what about this though? Instead of the cap space though, you get a traded player exception. So the cup ends in December. You then have a traded player exception that you can use between, and it expires at the deadline. You have to use it in the 2-month window. But let's say it's the size of the mid-level or something like that.
I don't think that's enough. Is the only problem. That's like it's. I think if you're doing that, it has to be a goodie bag that includes like a bunch of different things. Because me telling my friend at the game, hey, we might get a mid-level exception if we win this game.
But think about it. I guess this would only motivate teams who are actually good. But let's say that you are, I don't know, let's say you're Denver and you're trying to fire up for these, and you're like, man, our team's thin. Yeah. We don't have enough guys. Like, we don't have the salaries to match. Milwaukee's an even better example. It's going to be so hard for them to match salaries in a trade at the deadline or something like that. But if we win this cup, we get a trade exception, and then we can send off a future second and add Chris Boucher to the bench, or add Bruce Brown to our playoff run or something. Bruce Brown's contract's too much, but as examples, you could add a guy. So I think it would be short-term motivation for good teams that don't have any means of adding at the deadline. It's just like, hey, you only get it for right now, but you can add a guy. Obviously, you have to make the trade work, but
I don't hate this idea. It's not enough to get fans to be added. Like these things,
I think it's the one, not fans. I think it's the one that might motivate players the most. But only on good teams. Only on good
making
teams.
It like, hey, we have a trade. We could get rid of one of you guys through a trade more easily. That also.
Well, you can't. Yeah, I mean, we can get into cap issue. You can't merge a trade exception with a player. A guy would slide down. I'm just thinking like, if you're talking to Giannis, you're talking to LeBron, you're talking to Jokic. The thing that's going to motivate them is, man, we could improve our 7th man spot for the playoff run. Like that is actually a factor. That
same hole though too for this as the spending extra cash thing is you actually need your owner to do it. And then I would think that it actually is a little bit dangerous from a team standpoint, because all of a sudden they're under the gun to make that trade, to be like, hey guys, this was what it was all for.
Oh yeah, imagine you win and you don't use it,
and you don't use it, or you're feeling pressured to do it, and people criticize you for making a dumb trade because you use the trade exception. I don't know. Again, I need things that make the fans care. Here's the last one quickly before we go to break. Money
for fans.
Yes. They'll never do this.
Reasonable ticket prices for cup games.
No. Okay, I actually think there's a little something to this, and that I don't know how you patent a marketing idea, but and there's probably some gambling guy who's listening to this and is going to steal it, and I'm going to feel like a fool because so there's all these gambling companies that sponsor all these things, right? How do you not have it so that it's like, I know there's probably some legality in the way they advertise to younger people, I don't know, whatever it is, but instead of having, hey, you sign up for gambling company X, you get the free bet, you get this incentivizing thing. How do you not have it? It's like, okay, your team's in these games. If you're at the stadium, right? Just download this app, and if they win in the first round, you get $50. If they win in the second round or whatever, they get $100. And if they win the NBA Cup, you get $500 as a fan.
My biggest holdup with this is that, at least in some markets, games already aren't affordable for the average fan, the diehard fan, and this would only benefit the people who can already afford to be in the arena. And if ticket prices were to get bid up for the more important games.
But it's not enough money that a person who's rich is going to be like, I want to get there for the $500 game. So I don't think so. I just think that this is an issue of you're opening the door to making all fans only care because they're rooting for money. But either way, here's what I'm saying. This comes back to
a little taste of being a player.
Dude,
I get more money.
That's the thing. I don't care about Kevin Durant making that extra $200,000. That money, if the players all agreed, it goes to the fans in the arena. They're divvying it up in some way. That would make crazy juice. All of a sudden, people are watching these games. Every free throw matters. They're going nuts. They're trying. Like, that's how we get European atmosphere is put the money in. You know what's going to happen, too? People will watch the games. They're not going to just sit on their phones. Anyway.
European atmosphere. Give the fans money. Let us smoke in the arena.
Oh, I mean, they should have never taken that away
then
from
we've
us.
got the EuroLeague Serbian Championship.
The thing
5.
is, Zins have cured that ale. Like, they've fixed it. It's just that now the urinals are disgusting, full of Zins everywhere you go. Anyway, those are my thoughts. You let me know at JD Bunkis. Thanks, Blake Murphy, for coming in.